All right, thank you. Jackie, any other points of business we need to start off with?
I don't believe so. I don't see Senator Hartley on the line just yet, but why don't we just get underway?
All right. So as I said, today we will share with you the work that the value stream mapping work stream did. Let's see, there we go. And I just really want to give a huge shout out to all the companies that were on this, dedicating considerable amounts of time to helping out Webco, Schwertel, MDI, Habco, Horst, one's under my thing, and the academic partners, Collins, Professor Hashim from University of Hartford, Premier, Dr. Toro, and so just a very engaged and helpful team. And so just an overview of what we were trying to accomplish. We were trying to work towards the value stream map or other analysis that was called out in the legislation. We wanted to identify or begin to identify how we could understand how the service providers complemented, conflict, or duplicated each other, the impact of their services, and the identification of gaps. Now, we didn't work this completely do that yet. We're going to bring the team back together starting January 5th and have the whole working group kind of work on that. But what we did is to define the process that a manufacturer may follow to engage in Industry 4.0 technology. Important as we continue to move forward that the organizations that are identified, the entities, are those that receive state and federal funding to assist in Industry 4.0 technology, including research, developing, training, marketing, consulting, and deploying those technologies. So the team started off with discussion of the scope of our activity and what tools we'd want to use. And so we were focusing on how small and medium-sized manufacturers can see implementation of Industry 4.0 technology, focused on suppliers being the state and federally funded providers of Industry 4.0 services. The analysis tool we ended up using is called the SIPOC, Suppliers, Inputs, Processes, Outputs, and Customers. That is a tool that gives a very high-level view of processes, focuses on that, and then kind of the inputs and outputs that flow into each of those processes. So we thought, the team thought that was a useful tool for moving forward. And what we wanted to analyze is the elements of the current state of steps a small or medium-sized manufacturer would take to integrate i4.0 technology into their business. So taking the conclusions first, a high-level view of the process map that the team put together. The first step is there's something that initiates the process, some identification of the opportunity, some identification of a need, something that the manufacturer recognizes as triggering that they need to potentially pursue Industry 4.0 technology. The next step would be to engage the ecosystem. So in some way find out how they start to take that need and look for solution sets for them. And as they engage the ecosystem, they're going to identify, evaluate, and select solutions. And then as they down select from that, they're going to identify, evaluate, and select a provider of the solution that they're going to proceed with. While there's certainly no-go decisions, go, no-go decisions throughout the process, the group felt it was very important to identify the crucial one, which is making an investment. And so there's then a decision on whether or not to proceed, which will typically involve beginning to utilize resources to implement those things. Developing a project plan, and then having a solution implementation. And the team decided that this really meant ready to serve. Certainly with some of these technologies, there's the potential that there's iterations in the process or refinements, and we didn't want to extend too deeply into those. So now I'll go through the actual SIPOC, and we'll look at the suppliers' inputs for each of the processes and the outputs and customers for those. And again, I want to thank the manufacturers. We did this through a half-day working session and then refined it through some online sessions, and just really want to acknowledge the time and investment that they made to helping us be successful. So as I said, the first step is to identify the potential problem, the need or want, or the opportunity that exists. The potential suppliers of those are business systems, employees, potentially the voice of the customer, external demands such as market demands, employee demographics, the economy, world events. Those inputs will include the process, value stream, business metrics, performance, market opportunities, market conditions, technology mindset. The outputs from that process will include the full definition of the problem, the process or value stream defined, business metrics, including as much ROI is available at that time. And the customers of those outputs will be the stakeholders. And just to recognize in this, given that we're at a very high level, stakeholders is used in many different contexts, and so it's certainly the stakeholders that are appropriate for each of those contexts. So step 2 is to engage the ecosystem. And so the suppliers of that are certainly the stakeholders in step 1, personal experience, networks, potentially directors or other consultants that can help identify places in the ecosystem that can help, and economic development teams. The inputs are the specific problem to be solved and what knowledge of the ecosystem already exists. The outputs from that process are additional knowledge, awareness of potential solutions, awareness of potential providers, and the customer of that is the project champion, the person who is going to own the problem and the solution set. From there, the next step is to investigate the potential solutions. So that's identifying the solutions, evaluating them, and selecting the solution you're going to pursue. The suppliers of that process are the project champion, potential agencies, state and federal, groups that have relationships with them, academia, the vendors of potential solutions. The inputs will include information from the ecosystem, problem resolution options. So there's an acknowledgement that there may be more than one solution set at this point. And obviously the opinion of the problem owner and the decision makers will be critical inputs to this. And the outputs will be solution set priorities, information on the solutions, providers set with a cost and decision matrix, identification of process, people, technology that will be impacted, and the customer of that will be the decision makers. From there, the solution, potential solution path is identified, and so you move on to identifying providers of those solutions, evaluating those providers, and then selecting one. Looks very similar to the process above. So providers will be suppliers of input to this, as well as the ecosystem, and stakeholders from the previous step, and stakeholders who have background in those potential providers. The inputs are the outputs from step 3, benchmarks of both the providers and the potential path to solution. Implementation capability of the providers, the what, how, and when, and budget and operational information. And the process outputs would be the provider set, cost for those different providers, decision matrix, and a change management plan. And those, the customer of that, those outputs would go to the decision makers. From there, we go to the go, no-go decision. And as I said, there are certainly other places where there could be jumping off points, but this is the critical one for the business. And so the suppliers of the inputs for that are going to be the stakeholders, which can be the project champion. It could be potentially the decision maker, some of the providers' information. The inputs include the outputs from the previous step, the business case, including ROI, capital requirements and grant options, certainly any change management programs that happen, additional information such as that. And then that will lead to outputs of a decision or authority to proceed, which will be given to the project champion and the solution providers. From there, we move on to developing a project plan with timing. And so recognizing the critical need to take all the information and put it into a sequenced plan. The suppliers of that are the suppliers from the previous steps, as well as internal resources that will be needed to implement the plan. The inputs are the information from the previous steps, operational needs, risk analysis, and readiness, including physical and facilities readiness, skill set and training readiness, and mindset and change readiness. And the outputs will be the steps, the timing, and the resource allocation. And the customers of that are all the stakeholders. And then from that, we move to an implemented solution, which the suppliers of that are the stakeholders and all the suppliers and providers that have worked on the solution. The outputs from step 6 are the inputs. And hopefully the output is a new process that's operational and ready to serve. And the customers of that are all the stakeholders. And so that was the overview of our process map. Again, the hope is that we move towards bringing the teams together and identifying the gaps that exist in that, how we start to fill those gaps, and how we utilize the learnings from the outreach group and the SBIR group, and longer term, the network mapping group to facilitate that. So I think, yeah, and so we'll open that up to any questions. And certainly any feedback from team members is appreciated in case I missed anything.
Knowing how many hours that the team had dedicated to putting all of this together, right? So Jeff, you've shared in just 3 slides, very succinct inputs, outputs. Now it's a matter of then putting all the meat on the bones of this, and how we as, Constep and CCAT and others a part of this working group are going to move forward and then really have that robust mapping across the ecosystem of the service providers, how they're state and federally funded. So there's much more to come. I'm sure that folks might be just digesting the SIPOC if they've never seen one before. But again, I think it goes without saying, and we've acknowledged it a couple times, even just in the last 20 minutes, that a lot of work has gone into this. So thank you to all of those that contributed to this work.
Yeah, and we certainly recognize this as the point of actually beginning the next steps and kind of integrating that so that we can improve those processes and identify the gaps across Connecticut. I'm not seeing any hands or questions. Guess that means we did a good job. So as usual, we will share these slides. We'll let everybody kind of absorb them. The plan is to reconvene January 5th and begin our bi-weekly cadence again. We are going to bring all of the work streams back together at that point. And so next steps for Jackie and I, Ron and Beatrice, are to kind of work out that plan so that we're starting the new year off. We do have our interim report due in March and working towards the final report next fall. Representative Curry or Senator Hartley, any comments or feedback?
Yes, thank you all. First of all, I didn't miss your opening here, but I wanted to recognize and introduce to our i4.0 group, Representative Jeff Curry. I'm pleased to have him here with us today. He is, as we know, former representative, now Mayor Simmons, has moved on back down to the mayoral seat there. And I am so pleased to have Representative Curry as our House chair and team member on this. And he is, as you know, probably he hails from East Hartford, which is an incredible locus and center for manufacturing. And so this, I think, it's going to be great to have his presence. With regard to today's VSM, for the first time, because quite frankly, this is not my wheelhouse. I'm really getting my arms around this. I kind of am better with tangible things. I can always find the item that's already on the rack versus what's on the fabric vault or something. But here it is, very tangibly for us, really the first time. And while I was not on that particular work group on the VSM, I do have an appreciation for what it took to put that out. So yeah, I think we are in good stead, and this is an important part that will accomplish our end goal, which is, of course, to provide that roadmap, that blueprint to help launch our small and medium-sized manufacturers into this new generation of manufacturing, keeping Connecticut front and center with regard to the manufacturing sector. So kudos on this, and I could not be more impressed. Thank you.
And
well,
when
thank you.
says it all, you just simply agree. So
So without any other comment, I think we can end early. Wish you all a happy holiday, unless anybody's got any additional feedback. And we'll certainly send these out, give you an opportunity to review them, digest them. And again, we're looking forward to kicking off on January 5th with more exciting work.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, everyone.